All right, everyone, welcome back. Let's just put it like that. Welcome back to this session. This one will be a special one because it's not a session, a normal session, it's a live Q&A. So, just a very quick reminder, be ready with your questions and please make sure that you put them in the Q&A area so that I can see them, approve them, and then hopefully come to them. Our next guest is Mr. Horst Schulze, who is one of the co-founding members of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group. After he founded the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group and left it, he started something that's called the Capella Hotel Group, which, how can I say it? In 2010, I believe, their hotel in Ubud or in Bali immediately, or more or less almost immediately, won the #1 hotel in the world and many other prizes. I can speak a lot about Mr. Schulze because he was also part of our podcast. And it's always an incredible and lovely conversation that we have with him on various topics. But we're here to talk about presentations today and his thoughts around presentations, because I promise you, he has delivered a lot and he has seen a lot. Mr. Schulze, welcome to the conference. Welcome to Present to Succeed.
Bruce, delighted to be with you and with all of your participants. Good morning, or in my case, I'm in Atlanta in the US. It's morning here, so probably good afternoon where you are.
Yes, in Europe, you know, in Europe it's afternoon hours now, but we have a lot of people also from joining us from the US, which are in your time zone or very close to your time zone. So people from all over the world are joining us for this one. I want to fire this up immediately with the first question here, and I have this tablet so that I keep an eye on our audience and their reactions and their questions. The first one I have is related to the fact that you have seen so many presentations. And at the same time, not only have you seen a lot of presentations, but you yourself deliver a lot of presentations, and along the way, you had to deliver a lot of presentations. So my question to you is, what is someone that was in the founding members, who was in the founding members of organizations like Ritz-Carlton Hotels, what is someone like you doing to prepare for an important presentation? What are the top, let's say, 3 things that are super important for you?
Well, first of all, you have to understand what is the audience, what is the intent. As you know, Boris, I wrote a book about excellence. Excellence is never an accident. It's always the result of high intent and hard work. So before you do anything, including a presentation, what is your high intent? What's your intent? What do you want to accomplish? You have to let it go through your mind. Keep notes for yourself. With other words, prepare. That's the key. That's the short answer, prepare. But not just prepare. Prepare to have excellent results. Understand who you're talking to. What can you give them? And as a human being, you should understand when you make a presentation. I'm thinking right now, presenting to my employees. Mind you, with 50 Ritz-Carltons, I opened every one of them. I introduced the employees the first day. I introduced them who we are. My intent was there always. I will make sure here and that I try to help to positively impact the life of the people in the audience. Now, mind you, they were employees. That was the first. And then, of course, it has to go through your mind. How are you going to do that? How are you going to relate to them? And in a short word again, preparation is essential. Understand the time, the circumstance, the people, who's your audience, etc., etc. And then set a high intent for your presentation.
Yeah, I love your quote, and you immediately started with it, because of our discussions and conversations, and probably I won't be the first person to say this, but I'm a huge fan, obviously, of Excellence Wins, the book that you wrote. We actually gave it away to all of our team members here, and I highly recommend everyone checking out that book. But you started with a quote that I believe will resonate with a lot of people, that excellence is never an accident. That's right. I think is something for all of us to write down. And because you mentioned preparation, And because you mentioned that excellence is never an accident, I personally know because I have been on a call with you, I don't know, 3 or 4 times now. I don't remember anymore, but I see that there are 2 things that you are doing every single time, including today, that I believe everyone can learn from and can learn about. And these are the facts that, first of all, you join very early for each one of your calls. And the second one is that whenever you're doing a call, you don't do anything else. And I mean it with all my heart. You truly don't do anything else. You are all in on that call. Tell us, why is that so important for you? Why do you do those 2 things?
Yeah, well, first of all, yeah, okay. Let me push that together a little bit differently. What is the expectation of your market, of your customer? In this case, in a way, what is your expectation of me when I deal with you? Well, if you purchase anything, for example, it doesn't matter what it is in life, what you purchase, a car, a house, and anything, an automobile, you have 3 expectations, just as you had 3 expectations of me today. Number 1, you want the product. In this case, you want my presentation to be defect free. If you buy a bottle of water, you want it to be defect free. Number 2, and that is the answer right now, one of the answers to you. Number 2, you want it to be timely. Timeliness happens to be a very important thing. That's why I'm early. If you're not timely, it is nearly insulting, and it takes away from the trust of the people that you're dealing with. Timeliness is essential, ladies and gentlemen. And number 3, what you expect, you say, if you buy a bottle of water, you want it defect free, you want it timely, and you want the people who give it to you to be nice to you. So in other words, you put that into a presentation. Be defect free, meaning you're prepared. Timely, key element. And of course, to be nice in responding and to be accommodating to the people who you serve. That is true in everything you do.
Yeah, and I think that you had this saying that, especially for meetings, and I believe you probably apply it also for online calls, that when you schedule a meeting, let's say for 4 p.m., you expect everyone to be there at 4 p.m. And if you want a meeting, you were saying something like, if I wanted a meeting at 4:02, I will tell you so.
I would say, yeah, may I relate a little story to that?
Of course.
When I was a little boy, I started to work in a hotel. And because I wanted to work in a hotel business. And the first day when I arrived in the hotel, the maître d' talked to me. The head waiter talked to me. And think about the communication he had with me. I mean, it's just unbelievable. In very few words, in a very short time, he communicated everything to me. He said to me, young man, I was 14 years old, mind you. Very impressive. He said to me, tomorrow, come here to work, show up at 7 a.m. If I meant 1 minute after 7, I would tell you so. Wow. And number 2, he said, and do not come to work here. Come here to create excellence. Now, that went over my head, but nevertheless, think of what he did here. He established, we have rules here. He didn't say that. Don't come up at 7:01. He established discipline. He communicated everything to me. It was very clear to him what he did to me. And he established a standard, not only in a time, but in general, by saying excellence. Think about that communication. That was a communication to a little boy. But you have to have, and he knew very well what he was doing. You have to have this, it has to be that clear to you when you communicate with one or with many. It doesn't really matter. If you talk to 10,000 in front of you, you should be talking to them as if you talk to one and make it to that one person clear what you're saying. And this gentleman, in 1 minute, established standards, established everything, established discipline, established expectation, high intent, everything. in a short time. That is communication of excellence.
And even right now, that leads to my third question. Even right now, you are immediately jumping and telling us a story. When I was looking at the keynotes that you delivered, probably, I don't know when they were, but I saw them on YouTube, you always find places where you tell stories from your life. Why is it so important to you? And do you recommend this to the people that are here, business people who are, as we like to say, being asked to present whether they like it or not? Because so far, we had 4 other sessions talking about storytelling. But what's your take on it?
Well, Boris, today we talk about a certain subject, but it all relates at all times. It doesn't matter. But even if you know in my book, I tell stories around it. It's very clear. It's usually, what is a presentation like that? It's usually about business. Somewhere it is business. Now, I have read so many business books, and I usually start them, and 1/3 or half in, I put them away. It becomes boring and that's why I wrote my book, telling stories that this way you capture, and that's what you remember. Not just fact. No, how does that fact relate to a moment so people can relate to what it really means? I happen to tell one story always. Many years ago, I told a real experience story about a service that I experienced in a bank. Well, I told it a few times, and then I didn't want to tell it anymore. Next time I made a presentation, somebody came to me and said, please tell the bank story again. You see, they remembered the story. They didn't remember the rest of it. And it still goes on. I must have told that story 1,000 times by now. No kidding. I spoke yesterday to a larger group here in Georgia. And sure enough, I came in there and 2 people said to me, please tell the bank story. You remember a story. And consequently, and within the story, and you also remember the message that was given. So you want to give the messages so it is remembered, so people can, many speeches are made. You leave and you feel good. By the time you get to your car, you kind of have forgotten the details. So with other words, you don't take with you details that you can actually apply.
And what about, because going back to the beginning probably of my short introduction, or the start and the first question that I asked, you have seen so many presentations. You are serving now and consulting so many organizations. For sure, you have been exposed to many meetings that are with extreme high stakes. Have you seen just because of a presentation, the whole meeting to go off and just to not be as effective, or for otherwise organizations to lose money even? I don't know.
It's all the communication. It's all this in every meeting. Allow me to explain again. I mean, you know that by now we have talked many times. I'm absolutely possessed with the word excellence, because why waste your time in anything in life with mediocrity? Average. Somebody said good average. There's no such thing as a good average. Average is the bottom of good and the top of bad. That's all it is. So you should always, in every way, shoot for excellence. Let me go back to that, if you allow me, and talk a little bit more about excellence. Excellence in a thing, it doesn't matter what the thing is if it works well for what it has been created. Excellence for a human being is if you fulfill your function to the best of your ability. Your function, you're digging a hole, or whatever the function is that you're doing. Repairing something, whatever the function, writing, it doesn't matter. You do it to the best of your ability. Number 1, that's excellence, human being. Number 2, here we come. That's very important. Number 2, excellence for a human being means excellence in relationship. And even what we're doing now is relationship. And if you go into a meeting, it's a time of relationship. It's a time of communicating in relationship. And of course, the other piece of excellence in human being is being moral and have an integrity. Well, those two things, doing your best, very best in those two things. And here's the key. Whatever it is in those three elements, you have to question yourself, how could I do better? With other words, after a presentation, after a meeting, after an individual encounter, question yourself, how could I have done that better? How could I, even if you just walk by somebody, that is a moment of relationship too. How could I have said this better, hello better? For example, if you walk into a meeting anywhere, how do we communicate? Question yourself. If I pass you by, Boris, and say hi, what am I communicating? I communicated, we are equal. Hey, buddy, we're equal. But if I'm going to say, good morning, Boris, how are you today? I communicate, I respect you. But I'm also communicating that I am professional in what I'm doing. So you have to question yourself all the time, is this communication? And in every presentation, it's not different in a large presentation, in an individual presentation, or in a meeting presentation. How do you communicate it? Who are you talking to? What is the moment that exists here? Who is the audience? You have to let that go through your mind if it is an official meeting. And that again is called preparation.
But that part, how can you do it better? After each and every presentation, after each and every interaction, after each and every, let's say, response to a question, I would say is critical.
Yeah, Boris, if that is called continuous improvement of an individual. A company that doesn't continuously improve will die. There's no such thing than staying equal as a company. Either you become better or you're going to disappear. But it's in a way very much true for an individual. Either you improve or you get lost in the morass of mediocrity. Yep. And you improve by learning, by reading, of course, but much more so by questioning yourself, how could I have done this better?
A big question, I believe, for everyone, and a question that we need to probably take and just keep with us and just remind ourselves every single time after we do more or less anything, right? Absolutely anything.
Yes.
In the chase and in the pursuit of excellence.
And of course, again, you talk to individual. That is one thing. When you talk to a large group is in front of you. Be careful. I said before, and I kind of want to correct that. You pretend that you're talking to one person. That is right, but do not concentrate in one actual person in the audience. What tendency speakers have, they all of a sudden see somebody, they pick somebody who seems to be disinterested. They look at the ceiling. There's somebody who wants to become a ceiling engineer suddenly in the audience. And the tendency is now concentrate on that person. Don't. Because in that case, you're not talking to the rest anymore. You're talking to somebody who's not interested. You should talk to everybody, assume everybody is interested, and make it very clear, your message very clear in detail. Look over the heads. Don't be impacted by behavior or an attitude of one. Or I can tell you that story I never forget. I was sitting in a group of people. I was speaking to a group of people, and I saw I saw texting, and I was getting very annoyed with that person, concentrated on that person texting, and it angered me. How dare I'm speaking here, you're texting. Afterwards, this is a true story, what I'm telling you now. This is coincident. Afterwards, the person came to me and said, "Thank you very much. I made a lot of good notes on what you said." So he was not texting, but I concentrated on this guy. And guess what? That was 12 years ago. the group I spoke to him yesterday, he came to me and said, look here, I still have your message on my, here. So I was wrong in my assumption. Don't make an assumption of anybody in the room. Just speak in what you believe, what you had prepared for. Your, again, preparation. Speak and look over them. Look over their heads. Don't concentrate on one person, even though there's only one person in the room. Don't worry about that. There are 1,000. Doesn't matter if you talk to 1 or 10,000. Who cares?
Yeah, so it more or less you actually asked yourself, how can I do this better?
But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, once
and
you
again,
saw that,
when you finish, but never finish anything like that without saying, how could I have done this better?
So before I switch to the audience's questions, because there are quite a lot, I want to go with one simple one so that we kind of summarize what we are talking right now, and that is around hearing everything that you're saying, talking and comparing presentations and communication with relationships. I would say that you would probably recommend everyone who is here in the audience to focus their efforts, or at least 20% of their effort from the other, from the 100, right? The 80-20 rule. Probably you would push people here to and tell them, hey, focusing your efforts and spending time understanding how to improve your communications and presentation skills is important for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is concentrate on, understand what is the subject, who is the audience, what is the moment. I mean, this, everything changes. For example, the moment can be totally different. The moment, for example, I opened every Ritz-Carlton hotel and every Capella hotel around the world. It doesn't matter if that was in China or in Philadelphia or in Berlin or where it was. I made sure I was there, the first one there when we opened the new hotel or take over a hotel. Now, this is a special moment. Because if I'm speaking to the group of employees, however many there were, 600, 800 employees or whatever, they sit in the room, because it's a special moment, in this case, hear me out, because it's very important when you understand this. It's a significant emotional event because it's the first day of work. It's a significant emotional event. In that moment, you can impact the behavior. Behavior of people doesn't change. You learn from a presentation and you can apply from a presentation, but your behavior hasn't changed. But if you talk to a group of people that go through a significant emotional event, maybe a wedding, it may be a new job, it's a significant emotional event. In that moment, you actually can address and touch the behavior. They're willing to take on behavior, which normally is done when you're by the time you're 16 years old. You see how significant the moment is. So it's the audience, it's the moment, it's the audience, it's the subject. It all has to go through your mind. Again, preparation.
All right, and now to the audience's questions, because I want to also open the floor for them. I asked my part, now let's answer some of their questions. And I have one that I think is brilliant, because you're coming from such experiences like running incredible, just fascinating organizations. It's coming from a friend of ours whose name is Christian, and he has a two-part question, but I want to use just the first part because I find it very interesting, especially for a person like you. He's asking, how are you using your authority when you're presenting? Because let's be honest, you have quite some of that. So what is the role that it plays, and how do you personally use your authority when you communicate and when you present?
Yeah, well, yes, it is kind of, it is important. It is no question about it. I use it. You see, credibility plays a role. If I'm credible in the minds of the audience, they will listen better and take the things that I say as important. So consequently, I actually make it as a point when I make a speech and tell them what I am telling you is fact. It doesn't come from me. it has been well surveyed, it has been studied, and when I speak, I make sure that is a fact. And I said it has been well studied, and I tell the whole audience, so if you do not agree with me, means you're wrong. Since it has been scientifically proven what I'm going to say to you. Bang, I take the naysayers, the people that sit in the room and say, well, why do I listen to a hotel guy? We are in a financial business or whatever, because it doesn't really matter. What I'm going to tell them has been proven, has been studied, and I make that a point beforehand. And I said, and so I make sure, frankly, that's why an introduction that you made of me is important, because that introduction establishes credibility. Once you have credibility with the audience, people will listen, and it becomes much more reachable. You become more reachable. You can add to that by making statements like that. What I'm telling you, if you say, and I make clear, it's not just for me. I didn't discover anything like that. This has been started by the government of the United States, in fact, when I talk pieces about business, and so on and so on. So credibility is a key element, yes.
All right, and there is one question here from another friend of ours, whose name is Spencer Vaudron, who says something that I believe you probably noticed along the way and along the years of you being involved in so many organizations and businesses and meetings. There are many people, Spencer says, that when they have to give a presentation, they don't practice, they don't prepare. And the question here is, how would you persuade those people to do it?
Well, I don't practice either, but I prepare. As I explained before, I'm become aware, and I let it go through my mind. I don't stand there and speak. I do not write my speeches, because when I did in the beginning, when I had to make presentation, I tend to try, as soon as I wrote, I tend to find sophisticated words. I tended to try to make my speech sound sophisticated. And I realized I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak from my heart, truly from my heart, and give my honest feeling and my emotion about the subject. If the subject is such that I do not have a knowledge and emotion about it, I won't take it. I won't take that speech. So I'm prepared in a way already by taking speeches where I have honest feeling about the subject and about the what I can do about the audience and so on. So that's how my preparation. But I let it go through my mind. What are the key points, etc., etc.
Yeah,
yes. I don't stand down and well, mind you, I do this for so many years. I mean, I don't know. I make a speech. I make 2 or 3 speeches a week. I mean, my goodness, you know.
Of course, the experience also plays a huge part. There are a lot of people that are asking for the bank story. And because I think we can correlate the bank story to presentations, let's go with it.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Okay, now very, very fast. Most companies say they're in the service business. You have to remember now 3 things. What is service? Service starts with the instant you make contact with a great greeting. Number 2, it follows by complying, doing what the customer wants. And number 3, it's a fond farewell. Welcome, good welcome. Very important, by the way. Comply to guest wishes, fond farewell. And what do you expect? Those are 3 things you have to remember. And 3 other things you have to remember. What do you expect when you purchase anything? I told you that already. You expect no defect in the product. You expect timeliness, and you expect that the people who give you care. Now, I was supposed to speak to a bank years ago, 20 years ago, about customer satisfaction. The day before I spoke to the managers of that bank, I went to visit the bank, just to have been in that bank. So in case the next day somebody, have you been in our bank before, and blah, blah, blah. So the day before, go with me to that bank. I went to that bank, and it's a beautiful building. You walk in, marble floors, marble pillars. You can feel the money all around you. And in front of the tellers, it's a large bank, large line of tellers. There's a maze, and I get into the maze. Pretty soon I'm number one, timeliness. I look left and I thought I would be called on the left, or maybe there was a pretty girl teller, I don't know. I looked left and somebody on the right screamed, "Next!" That was the first step of service. Imagine that. I went over to her teller, was a lady. Now, men are usually worse in service, but this was a lady. She looked down and finished the transaction for a second, so I could see her face. I don't know her, she doesn't know me. But when she looked up, it was totally clear she hated me. And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I just want to change $50. She sighed and 10, 20, 40, 50. I looked, my product was correct. The timeliness was fine. The caring, the service was not there. Now, very fast, what could she have done? She could have said, "The next gentleman, please." And I would have been the same, "No more work. And I'm welcome. How may I help you? Just want to change $50. My pleasure. 10:45, 50. Have a wonderful day." Or she could have been even better. She would have said, "The next gentleman, please." And I come to her teller and she said, "Welcome, Mr. Schulze." Personal service. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you do in life today, personal service, individuality is essential. Is essential. There is a higher and higher demand for individuality and personal service. So anyway, that's the bank story condensed.
Yeah, I got goosebumps when you went to the third level with the personalization. I immediately, because it's a story, and we already discussed this with the previous 4 speakers, you immediately imagine it, right? It becomes your story. It's not something that someone says, it just becomes your story, and you can imagine yourself in this situation. It's so easy to understand what's happening there. And by the way, it's so easy in this case for this organization, or for all of us that are running small businesses or medium or large businesses, or whatever role we are, to try and understand those 3 components that you just mentioned and see how we can apply them in our role, including in the presentations that we deliver.
I have to touch on that. Imagine what happened there, and this is a true story. I went on from there on. I went on and told a bad service example about that story. I mentioned the bank, in fact, because can I imagine? But I didn't mention Susie or whatever her name was, the teller. I mentioned the bank. She defined the bank, and she defined herself, and she defined her fellow workers. That's what you do. That's why you cannot be accepting if that happens at your work, that even your fellow workers you shouldn't allow them to define you as negative. That happened in that situation. It's huge if you let that go through your mind. What happened there?
Yeah, that is so important. The fact that just one person defines the whole organization, and you may leave afterwards that bank or whatever it is and just say, the bank X is just not a good bank. I wouldn't do business with it. Yet you just had one interaction, and just one interaction defined everything.
Everything. And again, what was that moment? That was a moment of relationship.
A relationship, correct.
A moment of a moment, and we have to understand this here. This was a moment of individual presentation to me. It was the point in the account and money, that was a function. But the communication was a relationship moment. Again, excellence in relationship. That was, and she should be prepared to face every customer, every moment with a smile and a hello. She didn't prepare herself. Maybe she was a miserable human being anyway. Maybe she had a problem out there. It doesn't matter. She was not prepared to deal with in the communication, in the presentation that she gives to each person in front of her. It is not different than preparing for a whole group of people, or in a meeting or in a board meeting or whatever.
Indeed. And there is one that I'm going to go back to Christian, who has this question around authority. I mentioned that he has a two-part question, and I think right now is a really good moment for us to plug in the second part of his question, which is around high-stakes presentations with people that have a lot of authority. So everyone, let's say, in the room has a lot of authority. The question is more or less around, obviously you have been in situations like those, but the question here is, what do you do, and how do you remember a case when someone started interrupting you, a person who, again, has high authority in the room that started interrupting, and how did you navigate that situation?
Well, first of all, I respond to it, but let me make clear. There's nobody more important than the other than anybody else. Look, guys, don't be impressed by people with high authority. I'm on a lot of banks. I'm on a lot on a lot of boards. I'm 6 boards. Each board has 6, 7 CEOs from other companies and so on. Believe me, it's not very impressive. They're just human beings. Don't let yourself be impressed by it. But that's right. There is an authority in the room. Maybe the chairman in the room all of a sudden has a question and then try to pin someone. There's a situation. Obviously, that is situational. And I cannot exactly answer, but I would, if he would interrupt me and I'm in the middle of the flow of thought, and I said, good point, let me come back to you. Let me finish here and come back to you. I wouldn't let him change the direction where I'm going, because maybe he changes his mind by the time I'm finished with my presentation. And after he listens the whole thought that I had. If there's no other thoughts that I have to present afterwards, then I can stop and say, all right, that's a good way of continuing here by me answering your question, and then get them your message around that you wanted to give in the first place for the rest of the conversation. Don't let your control somebody else your mind. You stay with your direction, and of course with your direction and your belief. That is exactly why it's so important that you go into a speech again prepared in your belief of the subject that you're discussing. That's your preparation in your deep belief of the subject. This way, once you have a deep belief and reiterate it in your mind before the speech, nobody can take your mind away from it anymore. Then you're set, then you're ready with it. So let it go through your heart and through your soul and the subject, and feel your belief. And don't let them take you away from that one as a presenter. In a further discussion, when you're not presenting anymore, then it becomes a dialogue back and forth, relationship back and forth, in which you should be willing to change.
Yeah. By the way, there is one question from another friend of ours who is also in the hospitality business and cares about the caring component a lot, just a lot. I know her personally. There is a question that's a little bit around the hospitality part, but yet again, I see the connections between that part and our part here, the presentations and the world of communication. So I want to ask you that one. She says, her name is Ekaterina, and she says, despite the saying, the customer is not always correct. What is the most generous and respectful way to show that some guest behaviors are unacceptable and keep your team's dignity?
Yes. Well, first of all, don't let the behavior of somebody else lower your values and your standard of being a gentleman. I made it very clear in Ritz-Carlton and Capella. I made it very clear to the employees, you are not servants. You are ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. You're equally human being than myself. I made it clear in every orientation, or than the guest, except our profession is serving them. And we make a decision that every guest is a lady or a gentleman, even though we know, of course, that that's not true. And we know that. Okay? So it is clear that some guests, we call that, don't tell anybody else, don't, between you and me, we call that the jerk factor. That there's some people who are jerks. Except, I made it very clear in the company of 25,000 nearly, that I'm the only one in the company who can make the decision if a guest is a jerk or not. I cannot delegate that. I cannot say, you make that decision. I cannot. But you can call me and speak to me 24 hours. If there is somebody that behaves outrageous and is a jerk. Otherwise, we don't let them lower our behavior that we are, ladies and gentlemen. We keep on treat them, we keep on respecting them until it becomes impossible. But I couldn't delegate. Otherwise, any problem you have with a guest, you would have said, well, he was a jerk. I didn't delegate that. I delegated a lot. I was known for our unusual delegation to employees, but not that. That's not a decision we make. We are not making decisions they're wrong. We're making decisions that they're right. But of course, it happens. We have evicted people from hotels, but only through my saying, yes, evict them. And then we still did it first class. When we evict them, we had a limousine ready for them to take them to the next hotel. We made reservation. We had drinks in the limousine to give them and snacks on the way to the other hotel. First class. You don't give up being the lady and gentleman that we were. We don't give that up because of somebody being a jerk.
That is very... You can learn a lot, especially from that last part where just the fact that there is a limousine with drinks and everything else, just what it shows is a completely different way of thinking in a situation like that. And I believe everyone can draw the connection between presentations and people, let's say, who are trying to interrupt, constantly attack, etc. throughout, let's say, a meeting or a call.
But Boris, it comes right back to what's excellence in human being? It's our being excellence of relationship. We don't give that up for somebody who is a jerk. Why would we lower ourselves? It comes all back. Any presentation, any individual or group, there is no difference. There is no difference. You maintain your class, your knowledge, you present it. You present it to that individual. Or even if it just, and that's what I said, even if it just walk by somebody, how do you communicate? You say, hey, or nothing, or say, good morning, how are you? It is a huge difference. And to continuously improve yourself, to watch so that you are improving, so you're not sinking into the morass of mediocrity.
Yeah, and one last here, because we are more or less on the topic. There was a question from someone who didn't enter their name when they entered the platform here, but it's related to how do you approach a situation when you have to communicate something with someone that's important, yet you see that for some reason that audience is demotivated or just frustrated by something, or just not in there for a presentation.
Yeah, I kind of addressed that. You don't let yourself be impacted by the others. Don't let them manage you. You manage yourself. You manage yourself. If you allow them to impact you, then you let them manage you. If it is a group, you look over them. Don't look at them. Don't let an individual who is whatever is disinterested. Who knows? Maybe they got a bad message that a daughter went to the hospital this morning or whatever. It's not your business to do that. Your business is to communicate a thought that you had worked on very carefully, and you look past them. If it is one individual, then it's of course a little bit that you deal with. It's a little bit different. Then I would say. I would very simply say, Mr. Jones or Chan, or whoever it is, am I communicating right here? I mean, am I communicating? No, I'm not saying to you are not listening. I'm saying, am I communicating right? Did I make myself clear, or should I explain that differently. So I'm giving the message very clearly, buddy, you didn't listen. But I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Even though they know I'm saying it.
Yeah, I was about to say that clarity in your communication and the way you communicate is extremely important in a situation like that, and in all of the cases where you communicate. But when I hear you speak and when I hear you give those examples, the word clarity all constantly pops up in my head. It's everything that you say is so simple and clear and straight to the point. Sometimes maybe not that well accepted at the beginning, but maybe that is what we need from time to time, especially with people that are not in the mood, let's say.
Yeah, Boris, it again comes back to the preparation piece. If you're prepared in your mind and believe in what you're doing, you're not letting the others control you and move it. Don't let somebody else control you. And it won't happen if you have gone through it and strongly believe. I actually make sure that I'm emotionally connected to what I'm going to say, where I'm going to go. And then you cannot, nobody can take me away from that. I don't care what one, I did. You see, you remember the guy that did those things? I was totally impacted by him, and I was looking at him, and I wasn't talking to the rest of the room anymore, which is ridiculous. That doesn't happen to me anymore. I don't care what you do. I'm going to give my message. And even if there's only one person in the room I'm going to reach, I potentially help that person to be more successful in their life. What an honor. What an honor. I mean, I'm not, and if the other one doesn't want to stay in mediocrity, that's fine.
Indeed. Mr. Schulze,
don't let them manage you. You manage the situation when you present.
Yeah, and let's end with the excellence is never an accident. Everyone write that down. What is this? 3 words? Excellence is never, okay, 4 words? Yeah, it's just, I'm lost for words here, lost for words. We're already out of time, and we don't want to keep you here out of the time, because I'm sure that you have many more meetings to join today. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, and thank you so much for just answering absolutely all of the questions that we had for you. It was a pleasure to have you, and we hope that we see you again very, very soon.
Pleasure to be with you. God bless you.